Well, good morning and welcome to the another session of presentation. In today's presentation, I'll be talking about National Education Policy 2020. So I would like to share the screen with you so you can have a look at the presentation. Yeah, so in this presentation, I'll be talking about the highlights and the opportunities that National Education Policy of India brings for the education sector. I was in two minds as to how do I approach talking about this education policy. So I started, thinking of, mining the document. I used our language to mine this policy document, which is approximately 66 to 80 pages. So this is the result, because this is going to help me in framing the flow of the presentation. So the policy document consists of 40,243 words, and there were certain keywords, and I have worked out on the frequency of those keywords in the policy document, so that can give an idea as to what this policy document really is trying to emphasize on, and what are the areas where the educational reformers of India, especially in higher education institutions and universities, have to focus on. So the word learning was used 183 times in the document, research 130, quality 95, multidisciplinary 70 times, assessment 65, curriculum 63, skills 48, holistic development approximately 41 times. So based on the keywords used, I thought of trying to define what exactly the policy document would have been, or the guiding principles of national education policy would mean if I only use these keywords. So the first principle that can be defined is access, equity, equality, affordability, and accountability. If that is education for all, right? That is, it has to be made affordable, it has to be of a good quality, and it has to be accessible. And the people who are responsible for delivering these education have to be accountable for. So it includes all the stakeholders. The second definition which I could derive is the systematic institutional improvements in regulation, governance, and elevation of multidisciplinary academics and research in Indian higher education institutions. Now, this is interesting because the first time talking about the governance, the stakeholders, this education providers, they need to be very transparent as far as their regulations and governance standards are concerned. And the emphasis is on a lot of multidisciplinary academics. That is, don't work. The government wants to see that a lot of interconnections, interoperability between different domains, with a lot of stress on empirical, research-based data used for teaching. Now, third is inclusive, equitable, quality education for promoting lifelong learning opportunities, creation of a greater opportunities for individual development. That's interesting, and employment, reconfiguring education system to support and foster learning. So the overall emphasis of these principles can further be summarized. That is the theme on which the national education policy revolves. It says it's not only emphasized only to learn, but also learn how to learn. That's an interesting aspect. That is, one has to take the responsibility of its own learning and understand what are his or her requirements, learning requirements. Based on that, they have to look around for the resources and the opportunities, and obviously seek guidance in terms of coaching and mentorship. So if you put it this way, learning how to learn is the ability to pursue and persist learning by gaining awareness of your own individual learning processes and need. First of all, you need to understand that what are your learning needs, and how do you learn. Basically, each individual has a different style of learning, right? You need to identify available opportunities, gain and assimilate new knowledge and skill, by seeking and making use of guidance. Now, this policy plays an important role in terms of putting emphasis on coaching and mentoring. Now, here's a concept of mentoring is being used very beautifully. And learning how to learn is also the acquisition of fundamental basic skill related literacy, numeracy, and ICT. Now, literacy means that you should be able to read and write basic. Numeracy in the sense you should be able to perform basic mathematical operations, like addition, subtraction, division, and knowledge about technology. Central theme of national education policy as we move ahead with from those move forward. So there is an increasing creative potential for each individual. Now, the policy gradually is moving on to the level where they wanted that besides having the basic educational understanding, one should also explore the creative aspects of the individual personality. So it says the building up individual can develop cognitive capacities. These are thinking capacities. Then foundational capacity for literacy and numeracy. And then the third one is higher order cognitive capacities for creative thinking and emotional and ethical well-being. Now, these are the three gradual transitions and progressions which the national education policy wants for the Indian individuals. I've explained all these three further. The cognitive capacities, if we talk about, these are the skills that are related to, maybe thinking strategies, which enables individuals to remember, memory, logic, reasoning, holding attention, problem solving, thinking, reading, and learning. So these are basically related to how you think, how you read, how you understand, how you solve, how you pay attention to it. Second, the foundational capacity for literacy and numeracy I have discussed earlier also, but again, it's like reading basic text and solving some basic maths problem. Higher order cognitive capacity for creative thinking, emotional and ethical well-being talks about critical thinking, creative thinking, learning to learn. That's an interesting self-regulation, social and emotional skills, which is very important, including empathy and self-efficacy. Now, the two words have been. You will find that they have not been directly referenced, but they come across. They crop up in the the education policy every now and then. The first word is empathy. Now, empathy is understanding things from the different person's perspective, right? Similarly, self-efficacy is basically how you see yourself and the others. So these are it talks about more about confidence, right? I'll be now talking about the keywords which I have started in the presentation so that you can understand that what exactly the policy means. Now, multidisciplinary academics, it's an educational approach that allows students to learn and explore different subjects or curriculum across various disciplines. And now, I'll give an example. Suppose I'm from an accounting stream. So then I have an only option of selecting the subjects which are already defined in that stream. I cannot take any subjects from the arts or humanities, right? So this multidisciplinary academic says that maybe a student who is who's doing engineering, has an interest in economics. So how about he wants to do some subjects in economics? So multidisciplinary academic breaks the silos of the domains, and it allows you to integrate the curriculum where the emphasis is on different perspective, which can be brought to for understanding that theme, subject, or an issue. Now, multiple disciplines are used to study the same topic under multidisciplinary academics so that you can have a different perspective. As I said in the previous slide, empathy. Now, this is important because if you are developing different perspective, you can only understand those perspectives if you have an empathy, right? So this enhances interpersonal skill first and foremost. Second, empathy, as I said right now. Marketability also, because once you understand different perspective, you're able to better convince your potential customer, and also the ability to appreciate other persons and professional perspective. It also creates critical thinker and accomplished graduate. Now, accomplished graduate means in the sense that you are focusing on the holistic development of the personality. So for this multidisciplinary academics, like for example, evaluating a case study or planning scenarios from different perspective. Now, that's the beauty of case studies and the planning scenarios, where we talk from different perspectives. Another keyword which was used was learning, right? So less content and more learning. Now, more learning means focusing in developing the following skills, right? These are critical thinking skill, problem solving skill, creative thinking skill, multidisciplinary skill, innovative and adaptive skill, lifelong and fast learner skills. The other word is pedagogy and curriculum. The pedagogy, that is the way we are going to deliver the courses and train people as far as education is concerned. So pedagogy has to be experimental, and they say that it is important that whatever we are going to teach or whatever is being taught to the student or shared with the student as far as in the academic perspective must have some empirical and a practical ground. That is, you cannot go on simply explaining the theory. The theory need to have some empirical data. Pedagogy has to be holistic, that it is the overall personality, and it should be inclusive and universal. The pedagogy should be integrated, it should be cohesive, discovery oriented, that is cognitive and deductive. Then these are the things which I'll be discussing in the later part of the presentation. Learner centered, that is, it should be, there should be a blended learning. The COVID has given this idea of what blended learning is. Discussion based, reasoning and analytical, flexible, that means it should be adaptable. Now, I'll be moving a little fast because the presentation will take a lot more time. Pedagogy and curriculum, holistic development in academic and non-academic scope. This is the first time that we are seeing this non-academic scope being added to the academic concept. Wide scope and coverage, including science, mathematics, arts, craft, humanities, sports, and fitness, languages, literature, and values. Now, this new policy says that, beyond, you should think, it wants to extend beyond academics. Strong emphasis on foundational literacy and numeracy, as I have spoken earlier. Multidisciplinary and holistic education across domain, we all know that. Flexibility in learning, that is courses and program according to their talents and interests. Now, there should not be any compulsion or forceful imposition on a student or a learner that this is the only options available. Now, this new policy gives the students a lot of courses and program so that he can match or select the program and the courses according to his talents and interests. So there is a shift from, this policy is trying to bring a shift from textual understanding to the conceptual understanding. That is, instead of putting a lot of pressure on theory, it talks about the practical also. Focuses on research-based teaching. That is, whatever you are teaching, you need to first check those principles and the theories based on some evidence, and then you try to put across. Focuses on formative assessment rather than summative assessment for encouraging the culture of coaching. As I said earlier, coaching and mentoring is an important aspect of the national education policies. Now, formative assessment says that this is a type of an assessment where you continuously monitor the progress of the student, share the feedback, discuss with the student. It talks about students' strengths and weaknesses and allow students to keep on improving their performance. Whereas the summative assessment is normally we are following it. That is, it is done at the end of the course, and it is normally in the form of question papers, or viva, or practicals, and the results are being. But the disadvantages of the summative assessment is there is no feedback going on for the betterment of the student. So this new policy talks about the formative assessment is very important rather than summative assessment. That is a continuous assessment. Focuses on development of life skills. Now, we have been talking about life skills, soft skills, personality grooming, professional grooming, so many times. But first time this has been come into the formal structure of the education, that is importance of communication, cooperation, teamwork, and resilience. And then finally, this new policy talks about the curriculum synergy across all levels of education. So learning flexibility, I'm going to talk about from different stakeholders' perspective. Now, let's see that what in national education policy holds for different stakeholders, starting with the students. Now, students will have the learning flexibility for a skill enhancement and employability. That is, this new policy implements choice-based credit system. I'll make a separate presentation on this topic because it's a very exhaustive one. Undergraduate degree will be now 3 to 4 years with the multiple exit options and appropriate certifications. Now, if you complete 1 year of course of a program, then or a course, you get a certificate. 2 years if you complete, you get a diploma. When you complete a full degree, you get a full completion of the program or a course, you get a degree. liberal education, introduction of a singular stream, that is art and science. Now, earlier they were different there, but now they're talking about liberal education. That's the one which is a singular stream which will have arts and science. Now, they are also talking about introduction of academic bank of credit for digital storage and transfer of credit, because there are a number of exit points. So for that, they have to keep a track of it, so that it's not necessary that I complete my entire program at a course at one go. I may complete 1 year, take a break, then again after a certain period of time, I can come back and join the complete rest of the program. So for that, the academic bank of credit is going to be created, that is going to store the digital storage for transfer of credit. If you are a researcher, then let's see what this national education policy holds for you. It talks about establishment of National Research Foundation, NRF, which will be responsible for reviewing, funding, and mentoring research across domain. Now, I have a very different perspective as far as research is concerned, because I started, I've taken the research assignment, for myself very late in my career. That too, because I realized that I was told that I felt that it is essential that I must do something in this area also. Higher education to focus on research and innovation by setting up startup incubation center, technology development centers, center for frontier areas of research, greater industry academic linkages, interdisciplinary research, including humanities and social sciences. Now, if you talk about this research perspective, the idea is that peers will be involved in reviewing your proposal, and according to the review, you'll get the funding, and there'll be industry mentors, senior research professionals who are going to guide you for doing some purposeful research. All fresh and PhD entrants, irrespective of a discipline, to take credit-based courses in teaching, education, pedagogy, writing, related to their chosen PhD subject during the doctoral training period. And this is very important and very welcome decision of this policy. And the point is that India produces so many PhDs, every year. But when you talk to them, I'm surprised to. Off the record, I'm talking. Most of them don't even know what they're talking about as far as research is concerned, simply because the research, the institutions, those who are imparting this type of degrees, do not take this perspective of research perspective very seriously. And so was the case that it was introduced by National Education Policy, which talks about the credit-based courses. So you know how to teach, you have to take education courses, you have to do some courses in pedagogy as well as in writing. Especially writing is important. Now, PhD program to be reoriented for the purpose of teaching apprenticeship. That's an interesting, because if you are doing your doctorate program, PhD, then you need to have some reorientation so that you can understand how the teaching is to be done on the basis of empirical evidences. If you're a teacher, let's see what is there for you in this policy. Integrity, reaffirmation of faculty and institutional leadership position through merit appointments. That's good. Can career progression based on teaching, research, and service. Look at the grading of this. The word is how they have graded these words. First is the importance is given to the teaching. The second is to the research, and finally to the duration of the service you are involved in. So if most of the people, those who are good in research, they think that if they're doing the research, the career progression is going to be fast. But this new policy says teaching, research, and service, they are equally important, and teachers should expect to get more autonomy. Effective learning requires relevant curriculum, engaging pedagogy, continuous formative assessment, and adequate student support. Now, this is the point which I wanted to have taken it from the policy. So updated curriculum aligned with the latest knowledge requirement, meeting specified learning outcomes. Now, this is what it is trying to say. That teachers now have to update the curriculum so that learning outcomes of the program or a course has been fulfilled. Now, learning outcomes are basically the intended outcomes from a program. Then high quality pedagogy directly influencing learning outcomes. Now, this lecturing is not very important. The experiential learning and participation of the student is very, very important. So the outreach programs and all that have been included. Formative assessment for continuous monitoring of student learning, helping them in identifying their strengths and weaknesses for overall wellness. I've discussed earlier. This, if we look into this slide, this simply gives an idea or impression to the teachers that they have to work now more seriously and they'll be more involved and committed. Now, from the stakeholders management perspective, the policy says there will be an appointment of a highly qualified independent board of governors consisting of highly qualified, competent, and dedicated individuals with proven capabilities and commitment to the institution, having academic and administrative autonomy, which is very essential to the institutional autonomy, innovation, and pursuit of excellence. That is, they're talking about improved governance to be appointed by national higher education regulatory authorities. That's what they call it, NERA, right? So the summary of this is that now you will have an independent, just like your independent directors are there in private and public companies. Now you have the independent board of governors also. So they are going to be there. These will be the people who have an academic and administrative, experiences. Then National Higher Education Regulatory Council as a single regulator for higher education, excluding medical and legal education, will be created. So for all this body will be responsible as a single regulator. Then National Accreditation Authority, NAA for accreditation, that is one single body. General Education Council for framing learning outcomes for higher education programs. You will get that. National Education Qualification Framework by this General Education Council for designing learning outcomes. Higher Education Grant Commission for funding and financing of higher education institutions. Now these are the most of the time higher education institutions try to seek assistance from the government, so they apply. So this time education policy says that we're going to create a higher education grant commission, the HEGC, which is going to look into this aspect. Higher educations will now be put into the category continuum, right? Why I say continuum? Because you have these three categories are in gradual progression. So you'll find that there will be research universities, there will be teaching universities, and there will be autonomous degree granting colleges. So what is a research university? That is an institution that plays equal emphasis on teaching and research. Right? You're equally involved in teaching as well as equally involved in research. We talk about teaching universities, institutions that play greater emphasis on teaching and still conduct significant research. Now here in the second case, you'll not find parallels between teaching and research, but you'll find that the teaching is more important for these universities. Autonomous degree granting colleges is a large multidisciplinary institution of high learning that grants undergraduate degree and is primarily focused on undergraduate teaching. So finally, we've come to the end of this presentation. So I'll be talking about the takeaways. And that is, if you look into the national education policy, it talks about, access, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability, effective governance and leadership. It talks about systematic institutional improvements in regulation and governance for the elevation of multidisciplinary academics and research in Indian higher education institution, which is basically talking about the holistic multidisciplinary education. Inclusive, equitable, quality education for promoting lifelong learning opportunities. This is again a part of multidisciplinary education, which is purely based on research. Creating greater opportunities for individual employment. That is talking about creating an optimal learning environment. Reconfiguring education system to support and foster learning, and that's rationalized institutional architecture. So that's from my side on national education policy. I hope you liked it. I'll be sharing the links of the presentation in this series. I've made actually 3 presentations, which is one is talking about the national education policy, which you have just seen right now. The second in the series is talks about multidisciplinary education, outcome-based education, and outcome-based learning curriculum framework. And the third and the last in the series is outcome-based education implementation framework. I hope you liked it, and if you found this very helpful, you must share this presentation in your network for a better reach and support to the academic community. Thank you very much. With this, I stop my presentation.